This is episode 306 of the Super League pod, where we swap the storm for the mist, bird shit for cobwebs, and rhythmic drumming for a jazz solo. It's squad heavy, despite top merch being the only release from the combies. We cover all the news and action from the last week, and we make our rep game guesses, whilst we start with a semi-rant and end with a recommendation retread, and some reggae, sort of. Strap in, it's SLP time. Hello listeners, welcome along to episode 306 of the Super League pod. This week you have, we're going to have a bit of a fallout from the Wigan Hull KR game, because you've got myself, Mark, and I'm joined by Tim G. Tim, how are you doing?
Yes, not too bad. Yeah, enjoying the win and looking forward to many more from the sounds of it.
And I'm sure everyone's half expecting a rant from me. But before we get to that, do you want to tell everyone about our episode sponsor?
Yes, this episode is sponsored by Rob's Toy Shop, where you can find a wide range of toys, gifts, Rugby League birthday cards, and much, much more at Rob's Toy Shop over on eBay. If you visit stores.ebay.co.uk/Rob's Toy Shop, and on any orders over £5, you can earn 5% cash back, and also 1% of your order value will go into the SLP coffers just by putting SLP discount at the checkout.
Great stuff. Yep. I think Rob's Toy Shop's posted some new items on their page today on Twitter, so check those out and see if there's anything that people are interested in. We've got loads to get through this week, so much so that there's probably going to be something we miss. Maybe an international squad announcement, or like last week, a result from the championship that I somehow missed from the rundown, or we're definitely going to miss the fantasy points because we're giving up on that, but there's just absolutely loads to go through, so we're going to try and focus on the things that we've had the most fan views in. But some of the stuff that's big news has come in only today, when we haven't had the chance to get your guys' views in, so we'll talk about stuff and maybe get some views in for next week's show. Off the top, Tim, I want to talk about the George Williams thing, because it's not really news yet in some way. It's like a statement's been released to say that, this isn't the news. But someone did get in touch around that. So on the statement that Wigan released at the worst fucking time possible, Tom Andrews got in touch. He said, "Not sure what these deals in Wigan get signed with, but can only assume it's pie gravy or something, because the second signed deal a high-profile person has got out of with no repercussions recently." Yeah, so George Williams had some sort of agreement that Wigan would have the opportunity to re-sign him when he came back to the country. They were obviously probably not expecting it to be so soon that he came back, but George Williams has decided, quote, that he wants a new challenge, and apparently it wasn't about the money. So what I would say is George Williams has done an absolute solid for Chris Radlinski and Ian Lennigan in lying about saying it's not about the money, because I'm fairly certain he'll be getting offered more by the club that he's going to end up at, where he will almost certainly be the highest paid player in Super League. I don't think, especially when they move on the players that he's replacing at that club, because he's obviously going to Warrington, isn't he?
Yeah, well, isn't his dad involved somehow as a scout or coach or some sort of something at Warrington anyway? Wasn't he helping them look at players in the lower divisions or something?
Yeah, he is. I think it's more... I always understood it to be more in the academy structure, that he kind of... the scouting of local juniors, that sort of stuff that he was involved in, but maybe I'm wrong. But either way, I don't think that's a big enough reason to choose that club. I think it's because he's going to get paid more money, but maybe I should just believe what I'm told on this from George Williams and from the statement Wigan released, but quite frankly I don't. But yeah, I've had a lot of thoughts about this, and this is why we need to talk about it off the top as well, because I couldn't have it hanging over my head the whole show. I'm hugely disappointed that George Williams isn't coming back to Wigan. Wigan are losing their prime halfback, which we already know, so they needed to replace him. The perfect replacement came on the market, and Wigan haven't shifted heaven and earth to make sure they get that signing over the line, and I'm sad about that as a Wigan fan. Hopefully, they already have something else lined up, but there's not been any strong rumours about it, or they go and get another good halfback that's going to be out on the market. And I'm looking around the players that we definitely know will be available and to play in this country, and I'm thinking Theo Farge looks the best option. So maybe they need to be making an offer there if he hasn't already signed for Leeds or for Catalans or for Huddersfield or for all the millions of clubs he's been rumoured to be signed with, or indeed re-signed back at Saints. So they're going to have to go and make a signing from Australia, because I don't believe that a combination of what we would be left with, which is Jay Field and Harry Smith, will have the experience that's required at the crunch moments. But I think it's going to be a great signing for Warrington, which is what we'll talk about when that gets confirmed and all that. We'll probably next week's show get to talk about that. In terms of the deal and that sort of stuff, though, I think Wigan, I don't know how binding or enforceable or whatever any agreement they had with him was. Clearly, it's not been that hard for him to get out of it, but maybe Wigan just thought it was better to leave it and not kind of make that overshadow everything else that goes on, because whoever else we sign, it would be overshadowed by legal action going on against another player, and every time that player plays well and our player plays badly, it's already going to be like a conversation amongst the fans, so it'd just be amplified even more if there was some ongoing legal proceedings that were going to cost lots of money and drag out through time, and that's not what anyone wants. So, I'll let the club off for the legal action standpoint. I think they should have done more to make him not want to go to somewhere else in the first place. But anyway, it was bad timing coming out just after Wigan had lost, putting in a woeful performance and kind of giving us no hope. And then the one glimmer of hope was that we might be bringing back a star player. You never know. And no, not to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the J Field point's an interesting one. Are they saying that he is slotting into that slot, and was he a long-term plan that they've got to accelerate? It does seem odd on the face of it from outside that, as you say, the perfect round peg has come up to fill that round hole, and they're not taking it.
Yeah,
it does seem like a missed opportunity, but then if he's said he's not doing it, he's not doing it. I mean, what I worry from him as a player perspective is if it doesn't work out for him, he's going to slip down the pecking order, and
he can come back to Wigan on a lesser deal. I'll take him.
There's going to be a lot of question marks over his attitude suddenly. If it doesn't work out for him, it's going to, you could take the view that it got tough at Canberra and he decided he'd had enough, and he didn't pay. Just depending on who you believe, he didn't handle it in the best way anyway.
No, but I'm still happy to sort of look on the side of it of, him and his young partner are pregnant and thousands of miles away from home, and he was looking to make it an opportunity that they could be back in England for when the baby is born. Made total sense for me. I'd be feeling the same if I was him in that situation. But
but the some of the things that saying he wasn't going to train, he wasn't going to play a match, that doesn't come off terribly well. So he's got to back it up on the field now to put those doubts for us. And is it not the most English rugby league thing possible that he's an unattached player and named in the England squad?
Well, also though, there's a very good chance if it is Warrington that his first game for them potentially could be away at Wigan. I mean, it's unlikely because he's clearly not up to fitness at the moment. Otherwise, he would have made the final England squad. But look, and Wigan fans will boo him because they booed Josh Charnley for some reason as well. Personally, I and it was Wigan's choice not to take Josh Charlie back. Personally, I won't sort of hold it against him as a guy, because he was great for Wigan when he was at Wigan, but I hope he never fucking wins a trophy ever again in his career, other than for England.
Fair enough.
But that stands, you know. I hope Warrington never win a trophy ever again in their career.
I mean, they're doing their best not to. It's still, still not there yet.
Yeah, but there's more to that saga to play out that we'll talk about, probably in a more, linked to where he actually is and what he's actually going to be doing. But I thought we'd address it off the bat, and I'd talk about my disappointments for everyone. No, I felt, and then we'll move on to the news and see if there's any other people disappointed about any other things that are going on, Tim.
Okay, so Kevin Sinfield will leave his director of rugby role at Leeds Rhinos to join the Leicester Tigers as a defence coach at the end of the season. The 40-year-old said Rob Burrows' motor neuron disease diagnosis made him consider his own life choices. I got some perspective from Rob, club legend Sinfield told BBC Radio Leeds. It certainly hammered it home to me that you've got to do something you truly enjoy and get satisfaction from. That's where I find myself. I haven't enjoyed the job of late, and it's time for me to embark on a new challenge and do something new. I want to stress I absolutely love the club. I love the sport. I've always been involved since I was 7, and that will always be the case. It's always in my heart and in my head. I might be doing a role away from the sport, but that doesn't mean my commitment, my support, my love for the sport will change. I'll always have that. It's time to move on. There's a massive irony here that a player whose playing career for many will be overshadowed by his defensive lapse in the 2013 World Cup semi-final
and tactical lapse
and previous tactical lapse is going to be a defence coach. It's the first thing I thought when I saw that. I was like, really?
In a game where your tactical kicking game's more important as well. Fatboy Rob said, if nothing else, it explains the OBE. Loved the parting swipe at Uncle Gary. And Tom Andrews said, gets a medal off the Queen and now he's too good for Leeds. He will undoubtedly be back within a year or two. I'm a little bit disappointed that none of our Leeds correspondents got in touch to talk about this one. I know some of them, like off the news form, have commented about being disappointed and to me and things like that. What do you think? Do you think it's a loss, a big loss for the sport? Do you think it kind of puts things into perspective that it's not going great in the sport if people are having to do jobs that they're not supposed to be doing?
I think so. I think it's almost, it looks from the outside like he was almost shoehorned into a role that he wasn't necessarily, not so much suited for, but wasn't necessarily getting enough out of to make it enjoyable, make himself see that he could do it long term. There is this conversation and thing that's been pointed around by many people, probably Gary Harrington himself included, that he's the long-term successor, and he could still be. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised to see him back in 2 or 3 years. But if he's not enjoying that director of rugby role, and how successful has he been in that role necessarily? If you look at coaching appointments and the role he did with England as well, he's only really, it's not Richard Agar, but that was very much scrabbling around the back of the cupboard. The whole Furner business did him no favours.
No, but at the same time, Leeds have probably readdressed their approach and started to, maybe through COVID forcing it a little bit, but started to bring more young players through into the first team, which I think has probably hadn't happened enough for a while. They have won a Challenge Cup. Again, a weird Challenge Cup because of COVID, but still they won that trophy. So there's been successes. I would say Leeds are probably better off now than the kind of emergency situation that he was drafted back into the club in, that it felt like when he came back to Leeds but couldn't be the coach. But it seems clear to me that he probably hasn't necessarily found himself liking and settling into this